Well, good morning. I'm here today to speak with you because I'm hearing from many residents and organizations in our community about projects and services that have been on hold in the County Council for the past 2 months. This $12.3 million of funding includes helping us treat people with opioid use disorder in the Justice Center, helping us take care of women and children who are fleeing domestic violence, and taking care of our beloved parks. On February 14th, my office sent Council Bill 29, which is a request to reallocate money for projects and services that were previously approved by the County Council and my administration in 2024, but weren't completed. We were in agreement on all of those projects. In what is historically a routine matter, funds for the approved projects not completed the year before are usually reappropriated and reapproved for completion the following year. So there is no disruption in service. And I appreciate that the County Council has scheduled a budget hearing tomorrow to talk about these previously approved and agreed upon projects. And I'm hopeful that after hearing from our department leaders, that they will move swiftly to get these previously approved and agreed upon projects moving again. We'd like to get them completed. Or the council can give us direction and guidance on their priorities, and we will be able to better plan for the future of the county. But this delayed timeline to reappropriate these funds, we don't have a way to pay for them. And one project that we've almost completely completed is our point and pay system in the Department of Revenue. We are always looking for ways to improve the way our residents can pay their tax bills, especially after the mail was delayed this last year and caused backups amongst our staff in the Collector of Revenue's office. We are short-staffed, and they really struggled to complete the rush of payments that came in all at once. With this new system, residents will be able to pay their tax bills at the local grocery stores, helping us cut costs and address some of our own staffing problems. Another program being significantly affected by this delay is our medication-assisted treatment program in the Justice Center. We have requested $1 million to pay for additional Sublocade injections. This is the treatment that we have for detainees who are recovering from opioid addiction and have withdrawal symptoms. We're asking for additional funds because the program has gone from 10 or 20 patients per month 2 years ago to now over 100 patients per month. And St. Louis County is one of the first jails of our size in the country to offer medication-assisted treatment, known as MAT. Addressing the opioid epidemic, I know, is a shared goal and priority of my administration and the St. Louis County Council. And we've placed emphasis on treating those in custody in our jail because we know that they are 129 times more likely to die from an overdose than the general public. For many people with opioid use disorder, this medicine is the linchpin in their sustained recovery. With this further delay in the injectable medication has escalated from an operational challenge to a full-blown crisis. According to the correction medicine team at the Justice Center, it's severely impacting patient safety, staff morale, and really the overall stability of the facility. Come on up, Mark. As I said before, we have over 100 patients in the Justice Center who want the injectable medication, but we don't have the funding to get it. Another project in Bill 29 is replacing the HVAC system in the Kathy J. Wyman shelter, the only domestic violence shelter in St. Louis County. This 30-year-old system is just not keeping up with the heating and cooling and all the spaces in the shelter. And this is a shelter for women and children fleeing domestic violence. And summer is quickly approaching. I often talk about how we're committed to investing in North County. And we continue to look at ways to invest in areas that have historically been overlooked. We had set aside nearly $200,000 for renovations in Kinloch Park, which will make it really a cornerstone of that community. And we now are ready to put shovels in the ground. But we need the funding secured first. And we're also waiting on funding for the Spanish Lake Small Area Study, which is vital for North County. We really want to take advantage of the St. Louis Zoo's new safari park. And that development is critical to the redevelopment of that corner of North County. It really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's an investment that we just need to make. We're also working on building a new playground in Castle Point Park in North County. This is another $300,000 investment. So with all the economic uncertainties and the increased price of material that we face under an unpredictable tariff environment in the federal government, we should really be doing everything we can to get these projects moving again. We need to be doing everything we can to remove any barriers to accomplish the goals that the County Council and my administration have previously agreed to. The only thing certain in the face of these uncertainties is that the delay in implementing these projects will cause us to pay more for the same services. And of course, the county cannot risk defaulting on any payments which we are obligated to with our vendors. And this really is not a criticism of the County Council. All of these projects we have agreed on in the past, and I still believe they should be prioritized. So really now the council has to make a really tough decision, whether it wants to commit to these previously agreed upon and approved projects, or if they want to go in a different direction. And I understand the council members are charged with being fiscally responsible. And I appreciate all that they have to do to put together the budget. I know it's tough. The Budget Committee's meeting tomorrow. And in the past, we have heard that council members have agreed not only should we be efficient and effective with the use of our county funds and be seriously considering the way we spend those, but we also have to look at new sources of revenue if we're going to continue to try and close the budget gap that we've had now for 15 years in St. Louis County, and we're going to continue to provide the same good services the St. Louis County residents have come to expect. And I hope the council is able to get all of its questions answered at tomorrow's meeting so we can have clarity on their priorities and how they would like to spend these funds in the remainder of 2025. For those interested in attending this meeting tomorrow, it's going to be at 3:30 in the council chambers. And I hope you all are following along. This is really a serious challenge for St. Louis County to sort through our priorities, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
What communications have you had with Chair Days or other members of the County Council about this legislation ahead of the press conference today?
We've had a lot of conversations. We've talked about it several times over the past 2 months. And I sent them a letter about a week or two ago outlining my concerns. And I think this hearing is a response to those communications. I think they are looking at this, and I want to recognize that this is a really, really serious challenge for our community and people who believe in these projects, who have expressed support for these projects in the past, who drove the politics that got these projects included in the budget last year in the first place. They need to speak up and let the council know that these remain a priority for them and they would like to see these projects finished.
When you talk to them, what do they say about why these projects haven't been reapproved?
They're worried about the budget. The budget is a really tough problem. We have a $40 million gap. This has gone on for 15 years, and they're worried about how they close that gap.
And if cutting these projects is not how to close the gap, what is the solution you're proposing to say if you don't use this money for the budget, here's how I would close the gap. If their concern is the budget, how do you address that?
Well, we have to do what we've been doing. We have to spend from our reserve to make sure that the normal operations of county government continue, and we continue to provide the good services that people in St. Louis County have come to expect. And then we have to look at a new source of revenue, and I believe that is a use tax that we put on the ballot several years ago and it didn't pass, and we need to do that again. And we have the support of the small business community, the local chambers of commerce, and the municipal league to get that done.
It says here these projects are delayed due to incomplete project design, procurement, or executing contracts. Aren't those things that you do?
Yeah.
Couldn't
Absolutely.
the council say that these projects all should have been out the door already?
I think they could say that, but I think it's much more complicated than that. I don't, maybe we'll hear that. This is something that has been happening for 3 decades, that always some things don't get done, that they bump up against deadlines, they bump up against short staff, there are unforeseen circumstances. Nothing in government is executed perfectly. So every year for 3 decades, there has been a long list, probably around $10 million worth of projects that didn't get done. And they're on the verge of getting done. Some of them are under contract. It's kind of the rollover period at the end of the calendar year. And the usual and customary approach is to reappropriate the funds for the projects that didn't get done and keep them going.
Can you give any color or any examples to which of these projects might be near the finish line, or what might be?
Well, the point and pay system is almost done, and we're obligated to pay those funds. We're going to have to pay those funds, and it's really important. I know I heard from a lot of people that were frustrated that the mail was delayed in 2 weeks in January at the worst possible time for the December 31 postmarked tax bills, and we didn't get them until the middle of January, and then we had to scramble to try and process 5,000 bills with super short staff so people could get their license renewed on their cars by the end of January. It was just an alignment of a whole lot of tragic events. We encourage people to pay online, but it would also help us if we could have this point and pay system running so people could pay their tax bills at their local grocery store. That's just one example.
If the council's concern is the budget as to why they haven't reappropriated some of these funds, are any of these programs at risk of being cut?
Well, they have been cut because they haven't been reappropriated. So by definition, they're not happening unless they're reappropriated. So the council's got some really tough decisions to make to help us balance the budget. These are things that they put in the budget last year, for last year. They put in the budget the year before for last year. We all agreed that they were priorities. We worked in a budget cutting situation last year with short staff. We had more cuts last year with the people who were supposed to execute these projects. And every year for 3 decades, we've always had projects that weren't finished by the end of the year for whatever reason, and we just roll them over to the next year. But now we're talking about, are we going to keep doing these projects or not?
You say that these were priorities to all of you last year, but obviously the situation has changed. What is in here where you are willing to negotiate and say, okay, I understand the situation, we can move, do, etc., move things around to get at least some of these projects across the line? Because right now what you're saying is it's all or nothing. Pass
No,
this
wait,
and then
that's not
out,
right. The question is this all or nothing, or will we cutting these projects? These are all really high priority projects. The parks in North County, the point and click system for our taxpayers, HVAC upgrades at the Domestic Violence Center, substance abuse treatment for people in our jail. These are pretty important programs. These are core functions of county government. And there's not a lot on this list that I think anybody's going to want to cut. But we can look at it and we'll have those conversations. It's going to be tough. Upgrades at Spirit Airport, $5 million. This $12 million list, $5 million of it is for upgrades at Spirit Airport. But we need that. That's an economic engine for our community that brings money into St. Louis County.
Several communities in St. Louis County did have use tax questions on the April ballot and they failed. Does that give you pause considering whether to maybe put this on the August ballot? countywide, or is that even in the realm of possibility?
I don't know if we're ready to put it on so the question's about the use tax and which ballot we'll put it on. I don't know if we're ready to put it on the August ballot. I would want the council to be in agreement. We all have to get out and campaign for that. And if we're not in agreement on a ballot question, it's going to be hard to pass it. These use tax questions are always pretty close. Nobody likes a tax increase. I would argue that this is something that we need to make the county run. We have to pay the salaries of our police officers. We have to pay the salaries of the people who work in our jail and our people who work in public health, who inspect the restaurants, who spray for mosquitoes. We've seen a massive wave of inflation in our region in the past 5 years, and the county can't continue to provide the same services with the same revenue.
Councilwoman Webb has suggested she may have interest in challenging you in a Democratic primary. How do political considerations like that affect the way you approach these budget decisions?
So the question is about next year's elections and how the decisions we make around running county government will be impacted by next year's elections. Is that right?
More or less. I mean, you're having to deal with people who may want to run against you.
Okay, so I think that this is an odd-numbered year and elections are an even-numbered year, and we all need to get to work and run the county and worry about elections next year.
Do you plan to seek re-election?
Yes.
Of the projects on the list, I know that you mentioned there's a couple that are either at risk of being stopped. Are there some that are, what are the most sort of mission critical, or not mission critical, time critical projects on this list? You've talked about, for example, the medication assisted treatment. What are the other ones on there where for you it is, we are actually going to be stopping services as opposed to just not starting a project that is in the works?
So the question is about which projects on the list are most time critical. I guess I don't think I could do that off the top of my head. I don't have the list in front of me. I think getting the substance abuse treatment for people in the jail is pretty important. I think most people would argue that air conditioning in the women's shelter is important. The point and click system, the sooner we get that going, the better. The assessor needs some software, and we're in reassessment season. And they're short-staffed too. I don't think anybody wants to see the good people in the assessor's office who are trying to do the best they can. They don't want to see them struggle because their software isn't up to date. There's a lot of stuff on that list that's pretty important. And a lot of it's already started. Some of it's mostly done. And we would like to just finish it. And this gives you all a glimpse as to how tight our budget is. Because for the past 3 decades, reappropriating previously approved projects that were mostly done or almost done would be a routine thing.
A lot of universities and nonprofits in our area are either scrubbing references to race, equity, culture, their mission from their public-facing literature, just to avoid falling into the crosshairs of the federal government. One, what do you think of that general phenomenon in our society today? And two, do you have any assessment of what any federal funding cuts might impact county government? Any number or estimate on that?
Well, Mark, you always pack a lot of things in your questions. And I'm going to try to answer that, but I don't know if I can remember it all. I'll try and summarize it because not everybody can hear your question. But I think you asked about what do I think about the pushback on DEI at the federal level. If we're changing our grant application process, do I think it's right? What are we doing about it? Did I capture that mostly? Okay. I think the pushback against DEI is wrong. We support DEI in St. Louis County. I think it's a value of our country. I don't think we should be chasing people who don't look like us, and we should lay off the people who are here legally. All of those things are wrong, and I don't support it. We will comply with the grant applications for federal grants. We will fill out the applications, and if they say don't talk about equity and fairness, and there's 495 words you're not supposed to use, then we will fill out the applications the way they want us to fill them out. But we still believe in equity and inclusion, diversity, and giving attention to people who need help the most. That is a value of St. Louis County, and we are not going to change that. You want to follow up? Did I get that?
I guess, does the county council, does your office have any round ballpark estimate of what the changes in federal spending procedure
Okay.
will cost county government?
The question is, what changes in federal spending, what will they cost county government? Mark, nobody knows that. This changes every day. And sometimes we have cuts, and sometimes they give it back the next day. Sometimes they cut staff, and they put them back the next day. I think there's a lot of ebbing and flowing here. We've lost some grants. When I call to talk to somebody, they're not fully staffed. When the Housing and Urban Development has lost folks. USDA has lost folks. I can't keep track of all the cuts, but we've had some grants pulled back for sure. We're going to do the best we can with what we got. I think there's a lot of ebb and flow, and they're kind of feeling things out. I think they're cutting things or declaring things cut, and they see what happens. And if there's too much of an outcry, they'll put it back. And if there's not an outcry and something breaks, they'll put some of the stuff back. I think they're feeling their way through this, not strategically, but just doing things to see what happens and then trying to figure it out. And that's hard on all of us.
A majority of voters surveyed in an exit poll in the city of St. Louis in last week's election said that they'd be open to the city of St. Louis joining the county of St. Louis. Is that even realistic at all? Is there any appetite for exploring some sort of merged responsibility?
So the question is there an appetite for the city of St. Louis to be a part of St. Louis County instead of being its own county? And I think that there's a lot of people who talk about that. I think it's a reasonable question. And if we get together and we let people in St. Louis County vote on that, people in St. Louis City vote on it, then I would try and make it happen. Can't believe I wore you guys out.
You haven't even started.